How can I help you, young lady?
Lady? Chance would be a fine thing. No, definitely not a lady.
Can you explain what you mean?
I've been a puppet for some time, you see, or at least I feel like a puppet, and it troubles me.
I see. How long have you had these feelings?
As long as I can remember, I feel all wooden and plasticky. My movements have become jerky yet laboured, and only one of my arms is working. Look. Stupid arm. I feel like a bloody scarecrow.
Very interesting, Lindsey. Is it pronounced Puppen?
No, it's Puppen. Everybody gets it wrong.
Puppen, yes, interesting. But what you're describing, these are all physical symptoms, no doubt pathogenically created. We need to unravel this mysterious condition by examining what's inside.
Stuffing and buttons and beans?
No. Inside the unconscious. We need to trace these feelings back to their roots. There may be an incident in your past which you have subsequently repressed due to its traumatic nature. Or this condition may simply be a physical manifestation of your own self-doubt, that you are weak-willed and feel controlled by others.
I am cured.
I'm afraid it's not that simple. You are a neurotic.
I am not.
Yes, you are. You are suffering from a kind of hysteria.
I am not!
See? You are a victim of unconscious inhibition, which means that something is preventing you from knowing the cause of your misery. It's textbook.
Ah, so what next?
You must try to relax. Close your eyes.
Can't. I haven't got any eyelids.
Oh yes, how ignorant of me. Take deep breaths. Now, tell me your earliest memory as far back as you can remember. Think hard.
I can see a boy with a mask. It's a boy from down the road, and he's standing on my drive, wearing a green plastic witch's mask. I'm 3 years old, and I'm scared, but I feel angry, and I want to scare him to teach him a lesson. So I get a long stick, and I plant it into the soil in my front garden. I get a brown paper bag, and I try to draw a scary face on it, but I don't know how to draw something scary, so I draw a smiley face and put it on the stick anyway. The boy laughs at me, and I feel humiliated.
Good. We are getting somewhere. Masks have long been used in ritualistic theatrical displays of territoriality. They can also symbolize alternative selves or alter egos. A mask is protective. As a child, you may have been displaying a wish to be more powerful and to be able to control a response from another individual, a function of a puppeteer. Let us talk a little more about this. When I say mask, what goes through your mind?
Halloween, Friday the 13th, Freddy, Leatherface, Scream 1, 2 and 3.
Yes, I saw Scream as well. 1 was the best. 2 was rubbish, though. Sorry, yes. A host of terrifying imagery. Anything else?
Men dressed head to toe in rubber to look like women, Snow White, and paedophiles.
Paedophiles, goodness. Perhaps at this point I should introduce you to my good friends Johnny and Joan.
No, you misunderstand. I know those dolls are used, controversially I might add, to counsel children who have been abused. You misread my reference. I once, by chance, happened to see a television programme about the Geese Theatre Drama Therapy Group, who work with violent and sexual offenders in prisons. They were using masks, grotesque masks unfortunately, and role-playing scenarios in which the offenders might find it tempting to re-offend. This paradoxical imagery of childlike costume mixed with societal monsters was horrifying to me.
Well, I clearly understood what you are referring to, and I know all about these drama birds.
Geese?
Yes, I simply wanted you to look at my dolls, because they are so pretty. See, they have all their cavities.
Well, I find your dolls disturbing for the same reasons, despite their alleged validity as a tool. They are used in a play-like way, but it is without innocence, leading to dark secrets. Ugh.
I am sensing a lot of fear from you. I think some of this can be attributed to the large amount of horror films you watched from an early age. You have a belief instilled in you that things come alive in the dark and move around when no one is looking. This whole condition is probably psychosomatic.
It's been said before.
On the other hand, you have raised some interesting issues. The issue of distanciation employed by makers of horror films. Mask-wearing murderers are dehumanized by their disguises. making them easier for the audience to hate, but the audience is shocked when the mask is inevitably removed, revealing an everyday nobody, bringing them back to reality. This fear is perpetuated by the knowledge that the murders on screen are actually committed in the real world. People watch these films to desensitize themselves from the harsh realities. Bertolt Brecht, one of my contemporaries, wrote a great deal about his own series of distanciation. He was concerned that audiences in theatres should always be aware that what they were seeing was not real, and that they could watch with critical detachment. In your case, I suspect that during your childhood you were quite convinced that the performed media around you was real life. You would have experienced the emotions as if living within the performances. This may have led to a feeling or awareness of being manipulated emotionally, or a severe detachment from reality.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Well, it was you who decided that you needed therapy. A detachment from reality can sometimes offer relief. It has been said that eccentrics fall ill less often than other people because they don't feel the pressure to conform to the norms of society. But in cases where patients are aware of it affecting their mental health, as it clearly is in your case, puppet girl, a little abreaction is needed.
Abreaction being the process of releasing a repressed emotion about a previously forgotten event through reliving the original traumatic experience which caused the symptom.
Yes.
Let's rock!
I would like to address something you brought up earlier, and I don't mean in the vomiting sense. While we were exploring the word association, you mentioned Snow White. Can I ask, were you read to as a child?
Yes, all the time. In fact, I used to have trouble sleeping, so I would be read to every night. When I was a teenager, I had to use spoken word tapes at night to stop me from sleepwalking, and during a long period of illness until I was 19, my father would read my old children's books to me while I was bedridden.
Thank you, although a little too much information. What kind of stories did you enjoy the most?
Ones that fed the imagination, stories full of magic and curses and fairies and folklore.
Aha! Little by little we are unraveling your cognitive processes. This is good. I have many theories based around these tales.
Do these theories involve a large portion of wanting to shag or kill my parents, and a little fear of rejection thrown in for good measure?
Perhaps. You are acting defensively because these ideas are uncomfortable to entertain, which is understandable. I have lost great friends and colleagues who could not agree with my theory of sexual instinct. Nevertheless, they may play an integral part of your mysterious condition. What do you know about fairy tales?
I know that the oral folk tales of the late 17th century became the literary fairy tales we know now.
How do you know this?
I was researching for an essay.
I see. What else can you tell me?
Aren't I paying you to tell me things? I know that probably all Western children and adults know the same fairy tales, including the classics by the Brothers Grimm or Hans Christian Andersen, and that some literary heroes, Dickens for one, cite them as great influences on their work.
Yes, I believe Charles Dickens wanted to marry Little Red Riding Hood. What you have just told me about their popularity is great evidence of the importance of fairy tales as literature during the formative years. A great student of mine, Bruno Bettelheim, carried out a lot of research in this field. He concluded that, unlike any other form of literature, fairy tales help children to discover their own identities and callings.
But I used to enjoy the more sinister, bleaker tales, with the cruel step-parents and nasty creatures like Rumpelstiltskin and the Hobbyars.
Many of these stories had their darker sides and spiteful characters. Some of these were warning tactics for children, such as not to talk to strange witches or make pacts with goblins. They could also be interpreted as intimating that by facing hazardous struggles and situations through life, one can achieve one's true identity.
Balls! I think they were written to scare children.
Perhaps in their earliest beginnings as oral folklore some of them were, but as they progressed into literature they have obtained a more didactic function, encouraging individuals to find their own solutions through contemplating what the stories seem to say about them. Let us look a little deeper into the story of Snow White. This is one of the most famous fairy stories. Snow White is a young girl born of a queen who dies while Snow White is very young. The king, who is hardly mentioned in the story, remarries a narcissistic and spiteful woman. This narcissism causes the stepmother to become jealous of Snow White's beauty and imminent sexuality. She is jealous of the king's love for his daughter and wishes Snow White dead. Snow White, at this stage, would also feel jealous of the adult relationship between the king and the stepmother, signifying the Oedipal stage of development.
Is that normal?
Yes, I found that every child must progress through these stages of development if they are to achieve normal sexual maturity. It is inevitable that as adults we don't like to think of children as sexual beings, but the id we are all born with controls our libido and unbridled sexual desires. It is only with the development of the superego and conscience that we repress these urges of incest and narcissism and enter a state of latency where sex is dormant. This is mirrored in Snow White, where she joins the dwarfs. The dwarfs occupy a completely pre-Oedipal existence, but they are fantastically phallic. Little men with stunted bodies, skillfully penetrating dark holes for an occupation.
White that I saw at the cinema.
The Walt Disney version destroys the fairy tale function of being able to grasp its deeper meaning. To aid human interest and the cutesy-pansy effect, as I technically call it, he gives each dwarf a distinctly different personality and a name. This seriously interferes with the unconscious understanding that the group of identical dwarfs represent an immature pre-individual existence, which Snow White must transcend in order to grow up normally.
Now I feel a different light has been shed on this genre. This analytical dissection has made them appear less sinister, despite all the sexual connotations you have managed to drape on them. In fact, it's spoiled them a bit. Don't you think all the instructions about life that they contain is a little unfair? They ruin a perfectly good story. The urban legend wouldn't be as powerful as it is if somebody stripped it down to reveal the lessons we could learn from it.
I agree, but you have to really want to see what lies beneath the surface. These clues are carefully disguised as huntsmen, spinning wheels, and beanstalks. A child will take in this information unconsciously. That's the beauty of them, and the secret of their success.
Did you read them to your children, then?
Oh, Jesus, God, nein! Far too dirty and disturbing. Let's press on. There is more obtrusive probing to do. Was it das?
Help! Please, help me!
Will you two get out? Marital counseling is tomorrow. It's the same every week. That's tradition for you. They won't ever change. I have to say I find that Punch quite frightening. I think he needs to work out his feelings for his father. And all other men for that matter.
You can talk.
So, let's see what we have covered so far. That you display symptoms of anxiety which have manifested themselves physiologically. That these anxieties stem from childhood experiences with masks and dolls, folklore and fairy tales. You have issues dealing with distance and reality, and you have watched far too many horror films for your own good.
Anxiety stimulated by a highly intelligent and creative mind.
Yes, well, Hannibal Lecter was intelligent and creative too. Look what he did.
But you just used an example of a psychiatrist who murdered and ate his patients.
Freudian slip.
I'd like to talk about my dreams now, please.
You've come to the right man. I wrote the interpretation of dreams, you know. Do you have any particularly vivid ones?
There are a few recurring nightmares.
Recurring, that's not good. The repetition of unpleasant or traumatic events signifies retrospective anxiety in the psyche. Recurring nightmares could be your mind's way of building up its own defenses against the things it fears.
Of course. And I do fear things.
Describe one of these dreams to me.
Okay. There's a man. A short but very fat, bulbous man. He is dressed in a paper suit with the pockets, shirt and tie drawn on with black ink. He is very ugly. For a while he sits on a bed drinking what appears to be a pint of gin. Then all of a sudden he gets up and walks towards me, gesticulating and swearing in French. It's then that I realise he is on a stage, and pointing down at me, the audience. I feel very small, and he then seems very large and monstrous.
Tell me, does this figure appear to be wearing a crown or any other regal adornment?
No, not that I can remember. No, wait. The glass from which he drinks is stamped with a crown symbol. Why?
I think I can tell you who you are dreaming about. Have you heard of Alfred Jarry?
It rings a bell. Could I have met him?
Not likely, seeing as he's been dead for nearly 100 years.
Oh, how should I know who he is then?
I thought you might know of him through his connections with puppet theatre. He was a French avant-garde playwright in the late 1800s. Your dream seems to contain a mix of Jarry himself, a drunken dwarf by all accounts, and his alter ego, Père Ubu. Ubu was a character created by Jarry when he was 15. Like all school children, Jarry and his comrades would tease and impersonate their teachers, in particular a Professor Hébert. With theatrical flair, Jarry turned his impressions of Hébert into a different character with a new name, Ubu. Of course, Jarry was a lunatic, a sensible lunatic, someone once said, and drank himself to death at 34. But Ubu lives on in theatres. The plays were written with puppet performances in mind. Masks were also utilized, but there was no scenery and minimal props. Jarry was consumed by Ubu as you have been consumed by puppets. He lives the later part of his short life as if he were Ubu, with crazy clothes, bad manners, and regal speech.
What is the significance of the crown in the dream?
That's easy. His first play was called Ubu Roi. That's King Ubu to you. Ubu unthrones King Wenceslas of Poland and takes the crown for himself. Rotten old Ubu. Caused a storm in Paris when it premiered. Some people loved it, some hated it. People were fist-fighting in the orchestra pit. The first word was shite, you know. Subversive stuff.
That would explain the French swearing then. In fact, that pretty much explains the whole dream.
It may not explain the latent content of the dream. Dreams are usually controlled by the desire to fulfill a wish of some kind, normally a sexual wish.
Here we go.
I conclude that you are expressing an unconscious wish to enslave dwarves.
Oh my God.
Yes. How else can it be explained? Jarry the dwarf, the symbolism of the crown, a wish to become a ruler, the phallic dwarves in Snow White.
It's total crap. Absolute stinking crap. You have become a slave to your own laws, you foolish man. You just made that up. Let's see if you can do a little better with the second dream. Now you clear your mind. Ready?
Yes.
Right. This dream doesn't seem to have a definite beginning or end. And that's all that happens again and again. It's more of a frustrating dream than a frightening one.
This scenario reminds me of a scene from a Goethe play, Faust. A Czech animator named Jan Svankmajer made a recent film version featuring animation, puppets and masks. I think this could be what you are dreaming about.
But what does it mean?
Well, I suppose it could be any number of things. The repetition could refer to the control one person has over another, or you in this case. It could simply be the theme of good versus evil, signified by the devils. Perhaps you are dreaming about things regularly tackled by Svankmajer, subversive imagery, political commentary, or his most favorite subject, the unquiet house. Hence a lot of animated dolls, toys and puppets. This is concurrent with your fear of the inanimate, the things that always have the potential to come alive.
Although I would like to point out that I'm not afraid of everything inanimate. I'm not afraid of egg cups, for instance. No, actually I am a little afraid of them. There's just one more dream I'd like to explore, if you wouldn't mind.
Go on.
First of all, I seem to be in a dark tunnel. After a couple of seconds, I drop down into a chair at a table, which appears to be in the cafeteria of a university. Looking around, I see that everyone else is me, but in different clothes. All the other me's at the table are talking, but the only words they can say are, "Lindsey Puppen, Lindsey Puppen, Lindsey Puppen," and nothing else. Even the serving staff are me.
This isn't a dream. You are merely describing a scene from Being John Malkovich, where John goes inside his own portal. But because you are so self-absorbed, you have ejected John Malkovich and replaced him with yourself. This once again demonstrates your inability to judge reality.
Oh, I really do have problems. And they're worse than I thought they were to begin with.
There, child. This is all part of growing up.
Where's that music coming from?
Blimey! It's Brecht. What are you doing here?
I couldn't help it over here, especially when I heard my own name mentioned. And I'm sorry, but I couldn't listen to any more of Freud's bullshitting. Shame on you, Sigmund. I can clearly see the root of your problems. It's very simple. You are a puppet. You are a functional object, a tool. But this isn't a bad thing or something you should be ashamed of. Somebody has made you for a specific purpose. My advice to you is to relax and enjoy it.
Of course! How stupid I have been. Thank you so much. You truly are a wise dead man.
I knew it all along, of course. It was just so obvious.